Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Frollo Expert Meetup for this evening. We have the wonderful Lindsey Hall with us, so thank you, Lindsey, for joining us. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. If you can have your Zooms on a mute, just so that we don't get disturbed and Lindsey's presentation doesn't get disturbed while we are all listening, that would be really great. There will be time for some questions. So you can either then unmute yourself a little bit later on and ask the question, or you could put it in the chat group and then I'll be able to answer it and speak of it beforehand. So without further ado, I will hand over to Lindsey. So thank you very much, Lindsey. And if you could let us know a little bit about yourself and what we're going to be discussing this evening. So over to you.
Cool. Thank you for having me. First of all, this is really exciting. So yes, my name is Lindsey Hall, and I am here tonight on behalf of Kindling Dating. And I'm going to be doing a chat about healing heartbreak in the context of dating and dating after divorce. But before I get into that, a little bit about me. So I am an intimacy and empowerment coach. And what that means is that I really help people deepen an intimacy with themselves and with others, really own their power and their pleasure, and live a life that they absolutely love. And all of this came about following my own divorce, which is, we split up nearing 4 years ago now, which is crazy when I think about that and how that seems like yesterday and also a lifetime ago at the same time. And so we split up. I had a 2.5-year-old and a newborn at the time. And this was just a couple months before lockdown hit. And it absolutely, I did not see it coming. So it totally rocked my world. And I started getting coaching a few months after that. And in the process of getting my coaching, I realized just how ridiculously life-changing it was, which I feel like just the phrase life-changing always makes me like cringe a little bit, but actually it's so true. And it just changed how I was showing up in the world. It absolutely changed how I was getting through the divorce process. And so after about 9 months or so of getting coaching, I decided that I wanted to become a coach as well, because I just could see what effect it was having on me. And I got really jealous of my coach and getting to like kind of be the catalyst of that. And I wanted to sit where she was sitting. So I have now been coaching for 2 years. I've been doing it full time for a year. And although I do loads of things within that intimacy coaching umbrella, but a particular specialty of mine is divorce related because of what I went through. So we now 50-50 co-parent. We have our ups and downs with that. I think we co-parent pretty well, but there's also times where we don't. And so I can really help people get through the divorce process in a way that feels, I mean, the divorce itself is probably not going to feel great, but come out of it in a way that feels far more empowering than what we often see in the movies and social media and stuff. And then, so my focus on divorce coaching then morphed into dating coaching as I started dating. So all of my coaching, just revolves around like what I'm going through, basically. Like, oh, I can do it. I can help you guys do it too. So I've been in the dating world for, when did I start dating? About 1.5 years ago. So I took quite a while before, like when my divorce happened, before I really felt it was time to get out there and start dating again. And there's loads of like, some people take ages before they start dating. Some people go straight into it. There's absolutely no right or wrong or a timeline that anybody like should follow. But for me, yeah, it was a good couple of years of just me time. Also, like I said, we were in lockdown at that point. I had two tiny children I had to take care of and all of this stuff going on. But since entering, so I did a whole bunch of work on myself in that time, and then was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go dating now. Like I'm good. And then it turns out that dating introduces like a whole nother world of complexity. And you're like, oh, that stuff that I thought I had sorted out just kidding. So it felt like going from like a classroom or almost like a lab setting into the real world and being like, oh, got a whole bunch more learning to do. So it's been quite the adventure. And so I've turned that into then a dating after divorce coaching program as well, because there's just so many pieces that you can pull together and learn from. So that is kind of the what got me here and the what I know about it. And a big piece of what I have learned along the way in this is healing heartbreak. So that's what I wanted to come on and talk to you about tonight, because obviously going through a divorce or a breakup of a long-term relationship can be absolutely devastating. Like, my heart was broken into more pieces than I ever knew was possible. Um, and I hear this from people all the time, like, how on earth are you going to recover from that? Or that it's absolutely terrifying, the idea of putting yourself out there again, knowing what kind of hurt could come down the line and being like, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is go through anything like that again. And this brutal truth of it is that if you're going to date, you're probably going to have your heart broken again. Like, most people do not immediately go and spend the rest of their life with the first person that they date after divorce. A few do. It's not impossible, but it's definitely the rarity. So most of the time, you're going to go out there, you're going to start dating, and you're going to have some breakups. You're going to have heartbreaks along the way. There's going to be lots of stuff. And if you use that as a reason to play small, to stay, to stop yourself from putting yourself out there, that is going to also keep your connection possibilities small. It's going to slow down the dating process. It's going to keep you hidden in this kind of bubble wrap of fear. And so I really, really advocate for going out there with an open heart and doing it as many times as you can, like putting yourself out there, being the biggest, youiest version of you can be, knowing that if you get your heart broken again, you can heal it. And so when you have that trust in yourself, when you have that belief that, yeah, it could happen and it's going to be okay if it does, it makes it a lot less scary, as opposed to the other option of being like, oh my God, I don't know if I can go through that again. That's very different than, yeah, it'll probably suck, but I know I can do it. And I think of healing heartbreak. So although this is the class on like how to do it, also you can't force healing. So if you think of like a physical injury, like if you cut your leg, you can't, no matter how much willpower you focus on it, you can't like stare at it and watch it heal. Like, it doesn't, you can't force it to heal. But with a physical injury, you can do certain things to support the healing process. You can make sure that it's clean. You can put antiseptic on it. You can use essential oils. You can bandage it and keep the area clean and really, do things to support the healing process. But the healing has to happen on its own. But you trust that it's going to, particularly if you do all these helpful, supportive things. You trust that that's going to speed the process along. It's going to help the healing and it's going to heal. And it might not, depending on what your injury is, it might not be the exact same as before, but that's okay too. It will heal and you'll be able to move forward. So it's a similar approach when it comes to healing heartbreak. You can't just be like, boom, I decided to heal, so I'm healed. It does take time, and there's stuff that we can do to help it along. And when I'm talking about heartbreak here too, I think people automatically assume that I mean a breakup. And yes, that is a big one. That's the most obvious cause of heartbreak, is when you break up with somebody. Usually there's heartbreak involved in that to some degree. But that's not the only time. Heartbreak can come kind of at any point in it too. I definitely felt heartbroken before a relationship even got off the ground. I was heartbroken about the loss of the potential relationship. Like, it seemed like it could be so good, and we didn't give it the chance to really get started. And that broke my heart, that could have been. Or you can have heartbreak within a relationship. And it's something that I was going through recently, that within the relationship, we had fracture, we had conflict, we had some stuff going on that was really hard, and it hurt my heart, and it was not cool, and it was a hard thing to deal with. And then it became a healing opportunity and actually allowed us to deepen our intimacy with each other, but only as a result of that healing process. You can have heartbreak within a relationship as well, when it comes to like breaking up with old patterns within ourselves, or with old relationship patterns. And this one, I feel like it took me a little while longer to kind of wrap my head around. So if you're like, what are you talking about, Lindsey? Bear with me. But when we have these old patterns within ourselves and how we're so used to doing things, when you're doing the work, when you are doing this active healing and development and all the stuff inside of you to do things differently, changing those old patterns can actually feel like heartbreak sometimes. It can feel like breaking up with your old way of doing things. And it kind of comes down to, the phrase like better the devil you know. So you're like, oh, that old pattern wasn't serving me, but also it's scary to let that go and to try a new way of doing things, a new way of communicating, a new way of showing up. So there can almost be this heartbreak just for an old way of doing something. So it can come up in so many different ways within dating. But generally, the heartbreak comes as the end of something, whether it's the end of a particular pattern, or the end of a level that you were at and now you're moving to the next level, or whether it's the actual end of a relationship. But it generally comes as the end of something. And the end of something generally comes with some grief. So the first part of this is to allow yourself to feel that grief, to not make it wrong, to not try and, rush right past it or downplay it in any way, but to allow yourself the space and time to grieve. And then you will allow, when you grieve the end of something, you then are going to allow space for a new something to come in, a something more beautiful, a something even better. But so I'll start talking about some of the those supportive tools I talked about. So, when I said, think of this as like similar to a physical injury, where we're going to use things to support the healing process. You can't just force it to happen, but you can support it. So the very first thing is let yourself feel all the feelings. And this is as well as, like I said, letting yourself feel the room for grief and the room to let all of that happen. Let yourself feel the feelings. If you are trying to just rapidly move on, or maybe you had a tiny little cry and then you're like, there, that's it. I don't have time for anything else. There's this beautiful phrase that I absolutely love that says, a feeling fully felt fades. A feeling fully felt fades. And the opposite of that is what we resist persists. So if you are trying to resist these feelings and just push them off, they're going to stick around. They're not going to go away because they want to be felt. Whereas if you allow yourself the space to fully feel your feelings, they will then start to fade. They will loosen their power over you. They will work themselves out and through if you allow yourself to feel them. Now, if you are anything like me, sometimes we can get caught up in the life that has to happen. You might not be able to let yourself fully feel the feelings when you are trying to go to work and you're trying to parent your kids and you're trying to do all of the life stuff that has to happen. So it can be really easy to tamp down these feelings and not let yourself, because life just doesn't allow it. But you've got to give yourself time to do it. So even if it's you hold yourself together during the day and then the kids are in bed, and that can be your time to let yourself feel the feelings. But for me, it can be tricky then to switch into that mode. It's I've been holding myself together and I know I want to let these feelings come, but how do I trigger them? How do I process them, sort of? And so this is where I love a good chick flick, rom-com. Sometimes I go for a breakup one. If I'm going through a breakup, sometimes I'll pick a breakup movie. Sometimes I'll pick the most romantic love story I can find. And I let myself cry because I don't have what they have. So picking a movie that is gonna, trigger the tears. Music, so if you like on Spotify, there's like a gajillion breakup playlists. You can borrow somebody else's. If you know that you've got songs that really are going to get the tears flowing for you, pick those songs. Um, Another one that I like to do is if it's a breakup, or if it's related to a specific person, and you had a show that you watched together, watching your show but without the other person, it doesn't even matter what the show is, just turning on the show that you usually watch snuggled up with somebody else, and suddenly that person's not there, like just turning on the opening credits makes me bawl. It's so there's that. I When I said I was going through something recently within my relationship, he had left his sweatshirt at my house. So every day for about a week, I would put on his sweatshirt and then watch something that was gonna make me cry. And I would just sit there with his hood up and like let the tears flow. A bit silly and ridiculous. I mean, I'm laughing at myself now, but it was so needed and cathartic to just let the tears come. And over, like, as the week went on, like at first it was like full out sobbing, and as the week went on, it was lessening and lessening, and I could just feel that feeling these emotions, they were fading, exactly as the saying says. um Looking at old photos is another good one. If you need a way to like bring on the tears, look at the photos of all the happy times and let yourself sob about that. There's all kinds of ways that you can really like turn on the waterworks if you need to do that. It's not always just sadness either. Like, let yourself feel whatever feelings come up. So it might be anger. You might need to like, you know, pound a pillow and scream, and like sit in your car and scream at the top of your lungs if you need to. Or if you are lucky enough to live by the water and you want to like go stand at the shore and just yell into the, out into the sea. I live in Sheffield, which is landlocked, so not much of an opportunity for that. But sometimes when I'm really feeling the need for it, I have been known to drive to the East Coast and find a quiet beach and just like scream at the waves. So whatever you need to do, whatever the feelings are coming up, do something to let yourself fully feel them. And I'm not just talking like that 10 minutes, I'm talking about as many times as you need to. Also, along with that, is pay really close attention to your physical needs. So that might mean needing to move, like I said, pounding a pillow or raging at something, or it might be getting really cozy. I mean, when I was sitting there with his sweatshirt on and his hood up, I was also under a pile of blankets and just feeling like, oh, there's not enough blankets in the world to get me cozy right now. And like just fully wrapping up and needing to feel that support and that comfort. And so just paying really close attention to what is your body telling you it needs right now, and doing that, no matter how like, you know, cozying up in a pile of blankets makes sense, especially because it's cold outside these days and, no one's going to question that. But even if what your body is saying might not make a ton of sense, listen to it anyway. Your body knows what it needs. So whatever it says it needs, go for it. And I will include in that the food too. So I'm not a massive ice cream lover. I know in the movies they always sit and eat a whole tub of ice cream. That's not really my thing, but popcorn is for me. I can't go through a big emotional distressing thing without having a bowl of salted and buttered popcorn. So let yourself do that. Do not make it wrong. Like, it absolutely, if your body needs some comfort food, go for it. I'm not talking, eat the entire junk food aisle Morrison's every day for a month and eat like, that's not what we mean. But your body knows what it needs. So it will also know when it doesn't need that anymore. So again, just listen to it and be like, yes, we need something right now, and that is okay. So I'm going to go into a couple of the like woo woo things that I do. So if this is like, if you're like, oh my God, absolutely not, feel free to ignore me completely. But I am sort of into some of this woo woo stuff. So for me, essential oils are really helpful too. So I will put oils on my heart, or on my womb space if you have one, or wherever it feels kind of the most. Again, like if you listen to your body, it kind of knows. But so I use Young Living oil. So the Joy is the first one, which is a particular Young Living blend, but it's a heart opener one. It's specifically for heart openers. So I use this one actually when I am going on dates because it is a heart opener. And as I said at the very beginning, I am here for showing up with an open heart as many times, like over and over and over. So I'll put Joy on my heart before a date to let me like go into it open-hearted. But it's also good then for healing hearts. So when I'm going through heartbreak, I slather Joy all over my heart. Even though I'm not feeling joy at the moment, but it's what it's for. Patchouli oil is another good one for this. So patchouli, I tend to put more on my womb space. Frankincense is a great one. Frankincense is like the magic oil for like anything, basically. So sometimes I'll put a drop or two on the crown of my head, which just helps me kind of like my emotions just settle a bit. So it doesn't bypass the emotions, but it just helps settle the chaos of the emotions. Or again, sometimes on my heart or my womb space. And then the final one that I really love is called grounding, which again is a particular Young Living blend. But this grounding one, I put like a drop on the soles of each of my feet, which just helps me ground back in, clues in the name, ground back in to me. And to knowing that although there's all of these emotions swirling around, and often my head is going crazy at that point too, but the grounding just helps me come back in to me. And again, to that trust that I mentioned at the beginning, that trust that I'm going to be okay. It might feel like my world's falling apart, my heart is broken beyond repair. And all of that is a valid feeling, but it's not the actual truth. I can ground into my truth, which is that I'm going to be okay. So the oils really help me. Similarly, crystals. So rose quartz is a really good one for hearts. So I've got a water bottle that's got a crystal base, and I've got a rose quartz base. I've got different ones that I can like swap out. So as soon as hard stuff starts happening in a relationship, I grab the rose quartz base and use that. So it's just like constantly infusing my water that I'm drinking out of. I also did some sage burning. So clearing the energy around the house, clearing out whatever isn't serving me anymore, whether it's again, old patterns, whether it's old relationship energy, whether it's my own fears and shit going on in my head, but some sage burning can help clear all of that out as well. And then meditation is the final one on my current woo-woo list. And there's a brilliant free app called Insight Timer. I mean, you can get them on YouTube as well, and I think Spotify has them, but Insight Timer is the free app that I have that has just tons of meditations on like every topic. So if you search in there for like breakup meditations or heartbreak meditations, it could be, and it doesn't even have to be those topics. You can just do any, but again, meditation is to help you just ground back in and sort of slow down all the chaos that might be happening in your head and in your body. And it helps all of this, what it's doing basically, all of these things is helping re-regulate your nervous system. So when your nervous system's all like, oh, all about all of the things, these things just help calm your body down again. So the meditation will really do that too. None of these are the, magic cure. Like I said, none of this stuff will be, but it all helps to add little bits. And I always figure with the, this particularly like the woo-woo stuff, I'm like, do I absolutely know what's helping? No. Is it going to hurt? Absolutely not hurting. And I'm willing to do whatever might possibly help me. So thank you. If you've got more suggestions, throw them at me. Like I'll do all the things. So I do all of that. Then I also like to, when it comes to heartbreak, love bomb myself. So that might be from me to me and all of the things I love about me. And if that doesn't quite feel like I'm ready for that yet, then when I say love bomb myself, I mean surrounding myself with people I love, surrounding myself with other love. So this can mean from my kids sometimes, like it feels like, having to process all this heartbreak when I'm parenting can be really hard. But actually, it also can be really soothing to just let yourself get lost in kid world with these two little beauties who just adore me endlessly, no matter what. And there's like, whatever's going on, that love between me and my kids is absolutely never in question. So I'm like, let me just really concentrate on feeling their love coming at me and reminding myself of what that deep unconditional love feels like in my heart. Or doing the same with family or friends, I'll call my sister and be like, can you just remind me that, you love me and I'm a good person, or whatever it is. And just so wherever you can draw in extra love from people. And it can be hard. So again, this requires vulnerability. But I know that I've historically been somebody who didn't want to share. If I was going through emotional turmoil, I wouldn't usually tell my friends about it. I would keep it all to myself. And then probably when it was all done and dusted and over with, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that thing happened. But it's been a really big practice for me to work on letting people into the mess of things, like when it's currently happening, and sharing with people, yeah, we're having a tough time right now. Like, this is, I don't know what's going to happen within my relationship, or yes, we just broke up, or whatever it may be. And yeah, I'm a mess right now. And letting people into that is vulnerable, but it then allows them to surround you with love and to be part of that support network for you. So whatever you can do to just surround yourself with love, definitely recommend that. And then eventually, when I've done like all of those things and it feels like it's the right time, then I can go and pull out the lessons from whatever this ending was, whether it's within the relationship or the end of the relationship or whatever it is. I do not believe that everything happens for a reason, but I do believe strongly that nothing has to go to waste. So whether this was a relationship that just didn't quite get started, or whether it was a several year relationship, or anywhere in between, there are lessons that I can pull from that. There are things that it taught me, things that it showed me. It showed me new, oh, I like that, or oh, I really don't like that, or that's how I want to show up, or that, the way that they spoke to me is not okay. But actually, this other thing they did is. There will be endless lessons from all of it. So nothing that happened, whether it was like the best thing and you're devastated that ended, or maybe it was like, oh, that was like actually just this flaming ball of awfulness, but there will still be lessons to pull from that. If you try and do the lessons too soon and like skip past all the other stuff I talked about, it can be too soon. And you're still gonna, like, the other stuff needs to happen because that is part of the healing process. So I really recommend, and this is again something I have been guilty of myself, is trying to rush too quickly to the lessons. Like, I'm just sitting there like fresh off of a breakup phone call in floods of tears. And it can sometimes I can go to like, but there was this good thing and there was that good thing. But really, I need to come back to that later. I need to do all the other stuff. And then when it's time, when your body's like, okay, we're ready now, then you can pull out those lessons and see the beauty from it. And that then allows you to, again, it's just supportive of the healing process, I guess, really. I think that's everything that I had in terms of the like after the heartbreak. What I will say too, though, is this idea of going into dating open-hearted and going in really allowing yourself to open up and leaning into the good times, that can be a really helpful preventative measure as well. Preventative might not be the right word, because I don't mean you can prevent heartbreak. Like I said, it's pretty inevitable when it comes to relationships, but it can be it can lessen the intensity of it. So if you are in the relationship or in whatever is happening, and if you're really leaning into the good times and letting yourself soaking up all of the good stuff while it's happening and noticing it, it can help really feel like, even if this is going to end at some point, that's okay, because look at all this good stuff that I get from it. Like, it's going to be, if we break up, it's going to hurt for like that period of time, but I get to have all of this good period of time, which far and away outweighs it. And so one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown. And if you haven't read Brene Brown's stuff, please do. It's amazing. It's absolutely like everything she writes is so, so good. And one thing that she talks about is this concept of foreboding joy. And foreboding joy is basically not letting yourself feel the joy, not letting yourself feel the good stuff for fear that it's going to end. And it's that fear. It's like, if I try and protect myself from the hurt, like if I put these walls up, then it won't hurt as much. Well, yeah, but also then you don't get the good stuff because you can't selectively numb. You can't numb out just the bad stuff. It's across the board. So if you're numbing the bad stuff out, it means you're numbing the good stuff too. And that's totally not the point of life. The point of life is to let yourself feel all of it and really let yourself experience it. So let yourself really fully pull in all of the good stuff. Let it soak deep, deep in, because that is what then fortifies you for the hard stuff. The hard stuff doesn't seem so bad if you have this really solid foundation of all of the good stuff that's like built you up. Because then it's like, okay, then the hard stuff comes and you're like, okay, I've got, a full cup that has extra in it. I've got that abundance, and you can really rely on that. Whereas if you've been holding back, keeping arm's length, not letting people in, then you've got a heartbreak, and then you don't have that same solid foundation to go back to. And then you might have more what ifs and regrets and like, oh, they didn't even know the real me, or you're questioning, maybe they didn't like that. Whereas if you get to be fully you and let all the good stuff in, then it's like, okay, I got to experience all of that good stuff. And yeah, the end sucked, but I know that it gets to be this or something better going forward. So cannot stress enough the importance of letting the good stuff in. And I guess, yeah, I wrote down here, just letting yourself be here for all of the human magic and all of the mess, because that's what it is. Like, this human life is messy and magical, and you don't get to pick and choose the bits. So let yourself just open up and be there for all of it, because it comes back down to, and I think I've said this a few times now, that trust in yourself, that trust in you are going to be okay and you can handle this no matter what life throws at you. And when you have that really solid trust in yourself, it's so much easier to go into dating open rather than tiptoeing in afraid when you're like, oh, are they going to like me? Are they not going to? Oh, this might feel too good. Like, I definitely remember some of my early dates coming away from them being like, oh, I really kind of liked that person. That seemed like I could go somewhere. Oh shit, now what? Like, that was scarier than the first dates that were like, they were fine. Like, it was the, uh-oh, I might like this person. Oh, and that's because at that point, I didn't have that trust in myself that like, oh my God, like what is going to happen if this does go somewhere and then it hurts at the end? And it's only come through the building up of this skill and the having, several breakups to go through and being like, yep, they don't ever feel better. So that's the other thing with all of this, is that like, I am not saying that all of this makes the heartbreak suck less. In my experience, that is not the case. They still absolutely suck. I hate them. They are absolutely not, the worst part about dating. But they are so worth it because of all of the good stuff that I get along the way, because of all of the pleasure I get in the dating process, like, I've dated really great men and they've all been absolutely amazing, and I've had so much fun and I've learned so much and they've been fascinating to talk to. And all of that absolutely outweighs the sucky ending part. And the sucky ending part also is worth it because none of these great men have been my person. Like, they've ended for a reason. And although it's been great, they've ended for a reason, and they just open up room to get me closer and closer and closer to the person who is my person. Whereas if I'd stayed in that, they still wouldn't be my person. So these breakups are necessary to get you closer and closer and closer to the one who is going to be your next one. And I also don't believe in just the one. I think that you can have lots of the ones, but getting you closer to that. And so just really knowing that, yeah, you get to trust yourself in all of this, and that's my key takeaway, really. I will just quickly tell you about, if it's okay, Susan, I'll tell them about my dating
Yeah.
program and then open it up for questions.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. So I will just tell you that I mentioned, I think at the very, very beginning, that I've put all of this like knowledge and coaching and personal experience and coaching experience into a 6-week program called Dating After Divorce. And I'm doing that with Kindling Dating. So that's why I said I'm here on behalf of Kindling. Kindling has a 6-week get your dating life, get your love story started dating challenge. And then I've come on board as the Dating After Divorce expert. So we've got 2 different programs that are available now. Mine obviously has this different spin on it. So it's 6 weeks together. You get a mix of mindset and practical lessons in there. You get exercises, you get coaching with me. There's an option to do group coaching or one-to-one coaching. The group starts this coming Sunday. So if you're interested in the group one, we can share the links and everything, but it starts this coming Sunday. One-to-one can start whenever you want. But the cool part about this group that's starting this Sunday is that it gets the 6 weeks take you up to just before Christmas. So you can do all this cool work, finish before Christmas, and go into the new year with all of this like excitement and new ways of thinking about dating, rather than having to like wait until the new year and do the whole gonna start everything now and like get overwhelmed. This can set you up for going into the holiday season and going into the new year like really jazzed about dating stuff and thinking it as fun rather than being like, oh, another holiday season of my own. So if you're interested in that, we can get in touch and share details. Okay, that is it, I think. So over to you guys.
Oh, that's amazing, Lindsay. Thank you ever so much. So if anybody in the community has any questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask, or you could pop it in the chat group if you like. And I'll give you a few moments to do that, and then we'll take it from there. But it is, just going on what you said, Lindsay, it is really, really scary. I mean, like, I've been separated for 7 years, but I've been in a new relationship for nearly 3 years now. But at first it was so, so scary. And I really wasn't sure if I wanted to. Was I gonna? Maybe not. Shall I? Nah, can't be bothered to look what happened last time. You know what I mean? You have all of those awful kind of dreaded feelings. And then it's a funny thing, isn't it? And then when you just sort of, I had to do it very, very slowly and like, tiptoe myself along because I was very scared. And then now on reflection, I'm like, I'm really glad that I stopped myself being so scared and just kind of enjoy the little moment. So that's why I took it like things slowly. So I could just enjoy, oh, that was a nice coffee with a man. That was good. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to kill them like my ex. You know what I mean? And little things like that. So I literally just built it that way so that I didn't feel as overwhelmed and scared and very frightened type of thing. But
Definitely. And yeah, although I talk about like going in open hearted and opening your heart, I don't mean like, yeah, throw yourself into the deep end and completely overwhelm yourself and be like, wow, that's too much. Like, I definitely believe in, yeah, going at the pace that feels comfortable for you and giving yourself time to build up that.
Scary though, great, but scary too. We do have a question. So when you put a heart back together, it goes back together a bit different. Oh, that is so beautiful because I would really agree with that 100%. How do you pretend? How do you prevent it from hardening after repeated breaks, though? Any advice on that?
Yes. So that I think can very much be like the default position and that feeling that yes, every time it breaks, is it going to build up with more scar tissue and harden? And I think it has to be this really intentional practice to not allow that to happen. For me, I think the biggest part of that is that piece around pulling out the lessons and pulling out the beautiful things that did happen within that time. Because no matter how what the relationship looked like, it might have been a lot of awful stuff, but I guarantee there will also be good stuff in there. So I think the salve to the scar tissue is being super intentional about it and choosing to not let it harden your heart, choosing to look back and go, okay, there was beauty in there. And look, I got back up again. And I choose to believe that that relationship is taking me closer and closer to the next best thing for me. And if you choose to look at it in that way, that can counterbalance what could be that hardening over time. You get to have the power over going, no, I'm not going to let that be the answer. I'm gonna choose to throw myself back in there, knowing that I got myself no matter what.
So true. Sian, you've got a raised hand. What would you like to ask?
I don't know if I'm asking or just kind of sharing or what I'm doing. But I think I've actually kind of gone the opposite way in that, it took me a good 2 years before I kind of started dating again. And whilst it's certainly not been with everyone, but like there've been probably 2 or 3 people along the way where I felt like really quickly felt a real connection with them and just kind of gone headlong straight into it, put my all into it. And it's just gone at a gazillion miles an hour. And then it's kind of fallen apart quite quickly, after only like a couple of months or something. And I kind of, up until now, I've kind of been kicking myself thinking, oh, I just need to slow down and not put my whole self into everything, because I'm just, the roller coaster is just too much. It's like these crazy highs and then you come crashing back down. But are you kind of suggesting that actually, yeah, do you know what? Like, that's probably the best way to do it, is because at least you can remember that feeling of, the great highs, so that when you're over it, you can kind of go, yeah, but it was the chance of like getting that high again and keeping it is worth it.
Yeah, I absolutely do not think that is a bad approach. Like throwing yourself all the way in, if that's kind of your, if that's the thing that feels natural and you're like, oh, I want to throw myself in, absolutely. And one of the ones that it was a fairly early on one for me, and I very much felt like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I mentioned at the beginning that I had heartbreak from a relationship that never quite got off the ground. And it was one like that where we had a few weeks of like all in intense. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And it was only a few weeks. And it took me probably like 9 months to kind of really get over all of that. And I wouldn't change that at all, even though, and in that 9 months, like I was dating other people, but this guy just kept lingering in my heart. Like it wasn't lingering in real life, but because that gave me that feeling of everybody I dated up until that point was like, yeah, they were fine. Okay, that was all right. And it was this person where it was like, oh, it gets to feel this exciting and this kind of rush. And I get to feel like I want to throw myself in. I don't feel afraid to show you my whole me. And that opened me up to doing that with other people. And so I never advise like playing it cool and intentionally like holding back. So like I was just saying to Susanna about like, yes, go at a pace that's comfortable for you. So you do not have to jump in the deep end. If you're like, I'm just going to enjoy this coffee and go, that was a really nice coffee with another human. And then maybe we'll go up to like coffee and a cake next time. Like if that pace feels
That's
good.
exactly how it was. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So that feels good.
That took me like 4 years to get to that point, because I just didn't want anything to do with anybody after my marriage split up, and it took me 4 years, and then I just thought, no, just whatever, so yeah. But it literally was coffee and a cake, and then we went for dinner, but that was like a little while between, but still.
And yeah, so if that's the progression that feels good, do that. And also, if the progression is like go in hot and heavy, sleep together on the first night, go over to his house for dinner the next night, like, you know, if that's okay too. It's I never advocate intentionally holding yourself back because you think you should, or because you think it like that's the only way to protect yourself. Go out there, do it the way that feels like just go big if you want to, and know that you're gonna get good stuff from it. And so, yeah, Sean, you said about like the roller coaster of emotions and feeling like maybe I shouldn't do that again. But roller coasters are okay. That can, you know, yes, it can feel a bit like, oh, I got a bit of whiplash there. And maybe you need a bit of recovery time in between. So before it might feel like, oh, that was a wild ride. I'm gonna just give myself a breather before I start dating again, before I get on the next ride. But that can be okay. And then if you want to go for another crazy wild ride, go for it. There's absolutely no wrong way to do this.
Yeah. Another question before we go. So how do you fight that feeling of anger and still thinking that you both are meant to be together and no one else can fill that void?
Yeah. So that one, that can be tough. So I think a big part of that, I start with really sort of reflecting on the relationship and getting really clear about what did go wrong there, in terms of something happened that means you're not together anymore. And it might feel like you're still supposed to be, but we can only control our side of it. So we can look back and we can reflect on the relationship, and we can really get clear about what happened, what went wrong there, where was the disconnect. You know, breakups always happen because there was a disconnection somewhere along the way, or maybe lots of disconnection, most likely lots of disconnections along the way. And really reflecting on that piece and letting yourself sit with that. And because you mentioned the feeling of anger and what to do with that feeling, anger, there's still unprocessed stuff, and probably some forgiveness pieces, and probably some forgiveness of both you and your ex as well. And so a big part of what I talk about, and this comes up, there's a whole week on like forgiveness and healing heartbreak in my program as well, because this is such a big piece. It's so hard to move forward in dating when you're still holding on to those feelings in the past. Like you've got to complete the breakup. But so there's like spending a lot of time on the forgiveness piece can really help reduce that anger, because if you're holding on to something that you're still angry and resentful about and bitter about, it doesn't actually affect anybody except us. So like I was angry at my ex for cheating on me for like a long time. I was holding on to that anger, and it didn't matter one single bit to him. It was only me that was hurting from holding on to that anger. And so I had to really work hard on that forgiveness piece for my own benefit. And it took me a full year of like actively trying to forgive him. And then it like clicked all in one night sort of thing. Obviously, it wasn't just one night, it was a year of trying to do it. But there was one night where I was like, okay, I'm ready to forgive. And it was like this burden just lifted. And really working on that mindset piece. So once the forgiveness comes, then it's opening up to the world around you. And again, I spent a lot of time in that period thinking, like looking at, I suddenly opened my eyes to all of the men in the world, and was looking around going, there's literally nobody in this world I want to date. Like I'd be driving down the road and be like, not interested. I'd be, be at a busy place. Like I felt like there was nobody else that I could possibly want to be with. Like it was, my ex and I were not together anymore. We should have still been together. There was nobody else out here. And it took that internal healing before I finally eventually was like, oh, well, maybe you don't look awful. Maybe there's a possibility you could be interesting. And then just like really letting myself do that healing before then it started to feel like, okay, there's probably other people out here. And then that probably turned into, oh my God, I'm so excited to find out who else is out there. Oh, there's like an entire world of people out here that I could date. There's going to be so many cool people who I still get to meet. And all of that was like the gradual progression of it.
And it's really funny when that happens. I always remember some of my friends in the Frollo community, they were like, Susanna, honestly, there'll be one day you'll just look at your ex and you won't feel anything, anger, sad, happy, or any indifferent. And I was like, really? I don't really see how that's going to be. And then one day we were at a parents' evening together, and for the first time, as I walked away from the parents' evening, you go, I get it. I get what they meant. I didn't feel a thing. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like literally nothing at all. And it's
Yeah.
so bizarre because you really don't think that moment will ever be, let alone date again. Like, do you know what I mean? It's a bizarre thing, isn't it? And then it just kind of comes around and it's a bit strange.
Yeah. Although I will say too, that even when you reach that point, it can still sneak in now and then. You're like, oh, I thought that was done and gone. And like, it's not, I want to be with them again, but you can just still feel a pang of some emotion. And you're like, where'd that come from? But that's normal too.
Absolutely. Phil says, thanks, that's amazing. Thank you very much. Sean would just like to ask another question. So Sean, yeah, do you want to do it on you're going to speak it, or would you like to talk about it?
Yeah. So as I kind of said in the comments, it's not about dating, but it's about kind of the emotion following breakup sort of thing in that, and kind of family dynamics. So I don't know if this is your area, if it's relevant. If it's not, then just say it's not my thing. But for example, tomorrow, so my ex-husband got back together with his first wife after we split up. Yeah, I can see your face, Susanna. Like, really? Okay.
Well, you go, I think I've heard it all. I've not heard that one.
Yeah. And so they now live together, and his parents have moved over here, and basically they're all like one big happy family, as if pretty much I never existed, kind of thing. And we're pretty amicable, but there are things like I'm finding it hard to, even now kind of 3 and a bit years on, to accept this new kind of side to his family, as it were. So tomorrow there's some kind of thing with the Cubs, like a family event, and I'd asked about kind of going along and getting a table with like another family so that I didn't feel quite so awkward. And he said, and I said, oh, who's going all together? And he was like, oh, well, we all are. So it would be him, his ex-wife, I don't even know what to call her, our 2 children, her son, his parents. And I'm like, actually, no, it's too much. Like, I can't face all of that. So it just means that I miss out on things because I can't handle. Sorry, I get upset about it.
Oh, Sean, it's okay.
I don't miss him in the slightest. Like, I have no feelings towards him. It's just, I think that, the feeling of being replaced, almost, be that by him, or even seeing my children be comfortable with like another mother figure, is just hard for my heart to deal with.
Totally.
Yeah. And first of all, yeah, just sending you so much love for that, because that is hard and we can hear the emotion. I'll keep my answer short because Suzanne, I know you've got the next call starting. But I think first of all is just to say that your feelings and emotions around it are never wrong. So if you're feeling any sort of, like you said in there, it's 3.5 years on, and there's no timeline on any of this. So if there's any kind of like, oh, I should be okay with this by now, throw that out the window, because it's absolutely okay to feel whatever it is that you are feeling around this. And yeah, it's that part of that can be that grief of the vision that you thought it was going to be versus what it actually is now. And I think, yeah, I feel like there's so much I want to say, but the short version is really just doing what you need to do to protect your peace. So I think that, yeah, if going to that event tomorrow was going to be too much, I think that that's absolutely okay to not do. And then find other ways, because to sort of offset that feeling of, well, then I need to miss out. I want to be there for my kids and do these things, and I don't want to remove myself from the situations, but finding other ways to be there. Or maybe it's that actually you guys need to take turns going to events. So maybe you don't both get to go to every event. And, that might seem unfair to him that he says, well, I'm okay with this, why can't I go? But you are both parents, and you need to do what you need to do to protect your peace whilst finding ways for this to work. So yeah, I feel like that probably wasn't a comprehensive answer, but just, yeah, let yourself feel your feelings without feeling any shame around them, and do what you need to do to protect your peace and keep doing that healing. And it might change over time and it might not, but you're not wrong with what you're experiencing.
Totally. And Sian, I know that you know me anyway and what happened to me, but I still feel very much like that because my ex-husband went off with one of my friends. So there was a time that we had to all be in one situation, and my child begged that I would go, and I did it, and it was the worst thing for me, 100%. So I never did it again. And a bit like exactly what Lindsay's just said, that's the only way that I felt that I could manage it, was that we just do events separately, and we didn't ever cross paths. I know some people can, but just for me, even 7 years down the line, another relationship's got nothing to do with him. I just can't handle that situation. To see my friend around my children is just sickening to me. So I just can't let myself be in that situation. It was upsetting me just far too greatly. So a very heartfelt, Sian. I definitely know the feeling, not the same, but the feeling. It's horrific. So sending love and hugs.
Definitely.
It's tough. Tough. But thank you very much for everybody who participated with some questions, but just really coming along this evening to listen to Lindsay. So within the meetup section, there is Lindsay's all different handles for kindling, dating, etc. If anybody does want any other information, this will be on the Frollo YouTube channel. And if you want any extra information, just come to myself, and I can send and share any details that you might want to get in touch with Lindsay. That's no problem whatsoever. But thank you very much.
Sean just brought up. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, like Sean just brought up, like I do the dating stuff, and that's the program I'm promoting. But yeah, all things divorce and emotion and all the hard stuff, like bring it all my way.
Totally. But honestly, we've had wonderful, fantastic, very interesting. Thanks, Lindsay. Lots of hearts and loves and finger crossing, because Phil's going to try and get over that anger. But thank you all so very much. And Lindsay, honestly, thank you so very much for taking the time to come and talk to the Self and the community this evening. It's really much appreciated. But we must go now because I have to let the Frollo chat group in. So lots of love
for anybody who's sticking around on it.
Yeah, thank you ever so much, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone. Thank you.